I take the precedent for this meeting of the Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum held on 28th of May 2024. The following members are all present: Councillors John Anderson, Maureen Chalmers, Jerry Convery, Maureen Devlin, Joe Fagan, Richard Lockhart, Katie Loudon, Dave McLachlan, Kirsten Robb and John Ross. Thank you, and I'll now pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I come to item 1, which is declarations of interest? Are there any declarations of interest? I do not see any in the room or online. So could I come to item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting? These are submitted for approval as a correct record. Are there any questions about the minutes? I don't see any. Can we agree these as a correct record?
Agreed.
Okay. I'll come now to item 3, which is the Local Government Benchmarking Framework Overview Report for 2022 and 2023. Tom Little is going to speak to the report. Tom.
Thanks, Chair. So, the purpose of this is to bring to you a summary of the key messages that are contained within the LGBF Overview Report published by the Improvement Service in March 2024, but covering 2022-23. So, it's an annual report and it's the 12th of its kind. So, by this time, it's gathered a good deal of data over more than a decade. The data itself is published each year online in the form of a relatively handy dashboard from the Improvement Service, and the purpose of this report is to give you more of an overview, as the title would suggest, about what the data is telling us in terms of key messages for local government. So there are some positives in those key messages, but being honest, the overall theme is that councils, it won't surprise you, have faced challenging times. No surprise, especially given this report covers 22-23, because at that point, of course, communities and the council and our services were managing some pretty unprecedented challenges in terms of the rate of inflation and the cost of living crisis. So fundamentally, the Improvement Service says that funding levels for councils have not kept pace with increased demand, growing need and rising cost pressures. And they point to an Audit Scotland report that says that in that year, 22-23, there was a 1.9% real terms reduction in revenue funding available to councils in terms of them pursuing local priorities. Taken into a bit more of a granular detail, since 2010, spending has gone up in some areas, and the ones that are highlighted at 5.4 in your report say social care, education and support for care experienced children. But 5.5 gives a list there of services which have seen cuts over the same period, and you'll see they include culture and leisure, road spending, trading standards and street cleaning. The impact of all this has been that where previously there was a generally always increasing performance levels for councils, so there has been a slowdown in the pace of improvement in recent years. And there is a warning there that that actually could become decline if trends do not change going forward. So this being a national overview report, it doesn't highlight individual councils such as our own, but it does make some points at 5.8 and 5.9 in the report that there are differences being experienced at different local councils. Elsewhere or thereafter in the report, there's some other specific key messages we've picked out for you. You'll see at 5.10, it says that in terms of social care, councils face significantly growing demands, in part due to an ageing population. And specifically, the LGBF data for 22-23 provides clear evidence of some current system pressures. 5.11 in the report, we make the point that the cost of living crisis is not over and continues to have an impact not just on ourselves but on communities and families, and we highlight the specific impacts on children that they're experiencing as a result of this. And lastly, at 5.12, there is a note there that the council, all councils, are facing some pretty tough workforce capacity pressures in terms of trying to maintain performance levels. So next steps and recommendations, the only recommendation is to note this report, but I would point out that the full data set for the LGBF is available through the Improvement Service online tool, and we ourselves have created a kind of subset, our own dashboard that uses specific information that's important to South Lanarkshire Council, and that will be the subject of our report to you later on in this agenda. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much for that report, Tom. Can I ask if there are any questions or points on this report? And if there are, could you please indicate now? I have Katie Loudon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on 511 there, which has a little bit about children and young people. I just thought it was interesting to see this report in the context of the resource plan that we had presented at Education Committee at our last meeting, and then the sort of outcomes that we had, positive destination outcomes that we had presented in that as well. I just want to say that there's some really positive news in there, definitely, which is not always reflected in some of the rhetoric when we're talking about education, and it really is a testament to the hard work of teachers and staff what been through what have been a really difficult couple of years. Clearly, our challenges remain across councils and anyone who's involved in education at all, particularly those who have direct contact with pupils in the classroom, will tell you that this point about the cost of living crisis continuing to have a devastating effect on many families, and then what that means for children who are coming into school, they would absolutely agree with that. I had a really interesting conversation with a head teacher over the weekend about just these points which are picked up in this report as well, about some of the issues that remain around attendance, some of the issues that remain around the development of preschool children and younger children who are coming into sort of early years of primary and might have missed out on sort of key socialisation, which we're picking up locally and then also more widely as well. And this head teacher was telling me about how they're using that freedom that PEF gives them to target some support in there, which I think is really important. I know that Trinity High in Rutherglen, for example, were the first high school a few years ago who'd rolled out the idea of a secondary school nurture class, and that's since been rolled out in other schools. And they do some tremendous work to support issues with attendance, pupils that are finding it hard for many different reasons to actually come into school and be ready to sit and learn and be able to participate. So I just wanted to point that out. I think it's the fact that results are still good through what are really troubling times is really testament to the hard work of teachers and staff. And I know that there's further measures which were in the Education Resource Plan, which was presented to us the other day, to pick up in some of those issues. And I look forward to hearing more about how we get on with those in the next year to come. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Loudon. Could I come next to Councillor Richard Lockhart?
Five. They're pretty stark. And are we looking at the same again next year, do you think?
I think we missed the very start of your question, but we got the end of it. So we're referring to paragraph 5.5 and the spending reductions, and think, are we likely to face those kind of pressures next year, if I picked you up correctly?
Yes.
I'll maybe pass over to Paul Manning to comment on that, because we'll soon have to bring forward our budget strategy paper. Paul?
So, again, just to make the point, what we're talking about here is a national report. So this is in a national context. So these aren't these aren't reflective of the cuts in expenditure in relation to council departments. This is Audit Scotland looking at the picture across the country and assessing the movements between two periods of time in terms of how spend is moved. If I'm being honest with you, if you were to do this again next year, I think you're going to look at a similar set of figures. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Lockhart.
Gloomily, yes.
Exactly. If I might then offer my own reflections, I think if we take that paragraph 5.6, it does show that there are improvements across 2/3 of those performance indicators since the base year, despite all the pressures that we're well aware of, and that is quite remarkable. But it also contains that warning that if the public expenditure picture does not change, then we are likely to see the progress that we've made be reversed, and we're likely to see declining performance. And that then brings me back to 5.2 in the report, and it is this point that we will consistently, we have to consistently make, because it is not good enough for the government to say that because a headline figure has increased that somehow local government is awash with cash. The reality of the situation is that as a result of government interference and ring fencing, the core budget that we have to left to spend in all these areas, like the ones Councillor Lockhart has just alluded to, or indeed the ones that Councillor Loudon has mentioned, when it comes to education or leisure and culture, whatever it might be, we are seeing our core funding, that non-ring-fenced and non-directed expenditure, under immense pressure, and that is not reflected in some of the headline spin that we see from government, and it is driving the threat of further decline, and that's a message we've got to make very, very consistently, repeatedly, and morally. We've got to make the moral case for investment in local government and investment in local services. If there are no other points, can we agree that report? And we will come now to item 4, which is the Accounts Commission's new approach to audit of best value, and it contains reports on Falkirk and Moray councils, and Tom Little is going to speak to this item. Tom.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. Yep, you're absolutely right. This is the latest in a series of reports that we've been bringing to the forum to bring you the results of what are called Controller of Audit reports, which is the latest version of best value reporting being produced for other councils. In this case, as you say, Falkirk and Moray. Of the two, I'll start with Falkirk. It's by some way the more positive of the two reports, with recognition being given to the council's approach to transformational change and the collaborative leadership provided by officers and members. Other key messages are set out at 4.1 for Falkirk, and you'll see that includes at the top of page 14. And as just discussed, in common with other councils across Scotland, Falkirk faces significant financial challenges. At 4.2, the Commission puts forward action points that result from those key messages for Falkirk Council. And just picking out one that I've put in there, it's the Council should finalise and implement its community engagement strategy. Section 5 then picks up on Moray's report, and as I said, that one is not quite so positive. In fact, Moray's criticised across a number of fronts, including the slow pace of improvements, the use of reserves to deal with its significant forecasted budget gap, and a lack of effective cross-party working. Key messages for Moray are at 5.1, and action points follow at 5.2. Those include around financial management, performance reporting, and community engagement. Just ask you to note the report.
Okay, thanks very much, Tom. Can I ask if there are any questions or points on this report? And I will come to Councillor Kirsten Robb.
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the report, Tom. Just to ask when South Lanarkshire's next best value audit will be, and I was interested in reading about the Falkirk sort of transformational change programme, and to ask if South Lanarkshire had a similar programme about looking at, a future council and planning for long-term change. Thank you.
I think we've got a bit of a fight over who wants to answer that question. You'll be delighted to know. So I'll come to Tom in the first instance.
Well, it's a fight I would expect to lose, to be honest, Chair. To answer the first question, we expect our review to be towards the end of the programme. And I'm going to glance to my left to Neil there, and I think that probably means we'll be looking at 2026. Yeah, 2026, we think, will be the last one. In terms of, I'm going to pass over to the boss to answer the second part.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Robb. Thanks, Tom. In terms of a transformational review programme, this is a theme that you'll see in these Audit Scotland papers. What we are going to do is bring to the Executive Committee in June a paper which will look at the budgets for the years from 2025-26 and beyond. Now, part of what we'll deal with in that is how, across a period of time, we'll look to meet or to look to bridge a budget gap. And part of the way of doing that will be a programme of transformational reviews. So that will be covered in that paper in June. So hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Robb.
Okay. Can I ask if there are any other questions in relation to this report? I just want to draw the committee's attention to the Falkirk report, and at the top of page 14 in your papers, At the end of that first bullet point, and I would reiterate this point, particularly when it comes to the point in which our council has to set a balanced budget, that the report very clearly states in relation to Falkirk that the council must focus on delivering recurring savings this year and to avoid exacerbating the challenge in future years. And as we know, if we rely excessively and in an unplanned way on our reserves to produce a balanced budget, rather than addressing that underlying budget gap, then we simply exacerbate the budget pressures that we face in future years. So that is not, we have a credible plan to draw on our reserves, we have a credible plan to use one-off savings, but you cannot rely on those to duck the big challenges when it comes to public spending. Okay, no other questions on that. Can I come then to item 5, which is the local government benchmarking framework dashboard development, and Neil Reid is going to speak to this item. Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is another report about the LGBF, and the focus of this one is a dashboard which we have developed here in South Lanarkshire in conjunction with the Improvement Service, with assistance with by the Improvement Service. And this comes off the back of a programme of work that we've undertaken over the last few years, which has been reported at various points to the forum, really describing a sort of journey, if you like, that we've been on in terms of trying to take the LGBF and get our heads around it, if you like, better, and get into the bits that matter most to us. So perhaps rather than trying to grapple with 100 and more indicators, which is what the framework has, and it's getting bigger all the time, we looked to see how we could get more value out of it by zeroing in on the indicators which spoke to the concerns of the council. And so as we were developing our new council plan, we looked at the framework, we spoke to the Improvement Service, and they gave us some ideas about how the framework might align with our council plan in terms of which indicators seemed most appropriate to us. And from that work, and through we brought to the forum a view of a subset of indicators which were of strategic importance to us. And that's formed the basis of this dashboard, which I'm hoping to give you a bit of a demonstration of in a wee minute. But you know, in a sense, the development of the dashboard is the latest stage, if you like, of that journey, because the whole idea is to try and make the LGBF more accessible, make it easier to come to terms with it and understand it and interpret it. And that's what we think the dashboard does. So the Improvement Service, as Tom mentioned in one of his reports, they have moved towards presenting information in a dashboard as well nationally. And as they did this work, when they concluded it, they offered councils the opportunity to essentially take a copy of their dashboard and tweak it for their uses. And so we kind of jumped at that chance, and we were first in the queue to do that. And although initially we thought, and the Improvement Service thought, that we would essentially take their dashboard and make some small changes to it, we found actually that what we wanted to do was a more fundamental rebuild, if you like. And so we kind of stripped a lot of the stuff away, and we really focused it on what South Lanarkshire finds important. So I think what we've got at the end of the day, it isn't the Improvement Services dashboard with a South Lanarkshire logo on it. It's much more South Lanarkshire's dashboard, and I hope when you see it that you will agree with that assessment. So at 4.4 in this report, there's a list of the features of our dashboard, but I won't go through them. What I'll do instead is that I will show you what it looks like, and I'll demonstrate those elements to you on screen. So if we could see if the technology will work for us. Perfect. Okay, so this is the home page of the dashboard that we've designed. And you'll see down the left-hand side there some icons and wording, which that covers the 6 outcomes in our council plan. And what we've done is we've aligned the indicators, the subset of 36 indicators with each of these outcomes. So this homepage ticks a number of boxes, if you like. So it mentions the fact it refers to the council plan. It has a link here to the council plan, so you can go and read the source document. It talks about the family groups and allows you to go and find out more from the improvement service about what family groups are and what the LGBF framework is all about. It also contains a link to the council's website where we report all of the indicators. So again, although this dashboard is focused on 36, we continue to report all of the indicators, and they're all there on our public performance reporting. And we also link to the Improvement Service's own Explore the Data tool, which contains everything and contains everything for all councils. So all of that's covered in this homepage. But if we want to explore the council plan outcomes, if we click on any of these, then we get to a presentation that looks a bit like this. And what we've got here is a series of indicators, and they all show a line graph, which is a time trend. And the time trend is showing us the performance of Scotland, South Lanarkshire, and our family group. So essentially, the dark blue line is the performance of Scotland across time. The yellow or gold line is South Lanarkshire, and then there's a fainter blue line, which I hope you can see. That's the family group. So that's a group of 8 councils which are broadly similar in many respects to ourselves, and it makes sense to compare ourselves to them for this indicator. So for example, if you look at this one here, street cleanliness score, you can see that all the lines are declining, if you like. So a good score in this instance or a high score is good. But you do need to be aware when you're looking at specific indicators that what we call the polarity can change. So for a different indicator, a low score might be good. So for example, the one just to the right, which is the percentage of A-class roads considered for maintenance, then you want a lower figure rather than a higher figure. So fortunately for us, I think in both of these indicators, South Lanarkshire is doing well on the street cleanliness, though like everyone else in Scotland, it's declining. You can see that very clearly in this type of display. The picture seems a bit more varied with road maintenance, but again, it's very clear where we sit relative to Scotland and relative to our family group. I'm not going to discuss specific indicators. This is just to illustrate with what's on the screen just now. And you can go down any of the indicators or any of the outcomes, and what you see is a package of LGBF indicators that are relevant to the outcome. And you can scroll down and you get to see other ones which are not currently on the screen. If I go back to what we were talking about earlier though, if you hover over any of these graphs, then you get to see in this box that pops up, you can actually see the figures that the lines are charting. So if you're interested, for example, in how big this gap is between South Lanarkshire and the Scottish average, which you see round about here, then if you just hover over it, you see that relates to 2015, and you can see that the South Lanarkshire figure was 21%, whereas the Scotland figure was 29%, and the family group average figure was 24%. So it's very easy, relatively quickly, to get your hands on the numbers and to make sense of some of these trends that you're seeing. You'll also see at the bottom of this little pop-up box, you get a thing that says drill through. So we hover over that, then we've got access to 2 different options here. One is more information, which will take us to more information about this indicator. And the other one is an indicator definition, which will tell us how is it gathered, how is it interpreted. So I'm going to go into more information for this particular one. And this takes us through to another screen. And we've deliberately tried not to overcomplicate this, so there's not multiple screens. Essentially, when you go through, this is the second level of information that you get. So this is the same line graph that you saw previously that we clicked through to get to this page. But down here, we've got a bit of an expansion on the family group comparison. And this graph should be familiar to you because we've been using that for a number of years when we report the LGBF in its entirety to you. But what it shows is that the family group consists of those councils, and it shows for the latest LGBF year the actual numbers that those family group members achieved. So you can see that for the roads one that we're talking about here, we're kind of in the middle of the pack, even though the average seems to make it us quite close to that average. So let's just see how wide, if you like, the family group is. That's a different level of information. And we also have narrative, which is provided by service managers in the council. And that narrative is the same narrative that is reported to the forum when we report all 100-odd LGBF indicators. So that's available for all of the LGBF suite that's in this dashboard. So for any of these, you can click through and see another layer of information. And one of the things I think that's handy about it is that it allows you very quickly to look at different indicators side by side. So you can start to see perhaps expenditure in one area of service and then the outputs from that area of service. You can't necessarily get the graphs on the same page, but it's very easy to flick from one to the other to see the relationships between the different indicators. So essentially that's the dashboard as it currently stands. It's a relatively recent development, and we intend to potentially add more information to it as we take feedback and find out what people think of it. Currently it is not live, but following this meeting, if members are happy with it, we can simply put a link to it on the website and anyone will be able to access it, members of the public, because all of this information, it's already public in terms of we've reported it here at this forum, and the data itself is available on the Improvement Services website if you want to go and get stuck right into it, but we've focused on what matters to us in this presentation. So that's the demo, and thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Neil, for that report and also for just walking us through what the new online tool is going to look like when it goes live. Can I ask if there are any questions or any points that anyone wishes to make at this point? And can I come to John Ross?
Yes, thanks very much, Joe. I would like to thank Neil for his presentation. This has been a journey which has been ongoing, and I think it's remarkable that the information that we're now able to obtain in such an easy-to-read format, which I think will be great for everybody's insight into exactly what's happening, both at our council and in comparison with our family councils. So once again, thanks very much, Neil, for the work that your team have put into this. And as I say, I'm looking forward to even more developments in the journey forward. Thanks very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll echo the. I have one more question. Sorry, from Kirsten Robb. Kirsten.
Thanks very much. Just a simple question there. It looks very accessible what you've produced, Neil. Just ask if you could send the link round to where we get it when it's live. That was it.
We'll do that after the meeting. Okay. And all I was going to do was just echo the congratulations for Neil and his team across the different services and support services that have gone into that as well, to make the information that we know is out there much more accessible for members and for the public and for others. So thank you very much. We can agree the report, and I have no items of urgent business, so can I ask the clerk to stop recording the meeting and I'll bring it to a close. Thank you, everybody.